So if we want to be really clear about roles and responsibilities, one part of that is decisions. So who makes the decisions? How are the decisions going to be made? And there's a bunch of different ways to approach this. And so here are some ways you might think about this in your work. So, you know, if you don't have clarity on how decisions are supposed to be made, lots of things can go wrong. The leader can kind of just, once things get uncomfortable, can kind of take over. The power players might end up deciding. And as we know, in our society, that tends to be, whiter, maler, louder types of personalities. Um, Things can just go on forever. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been in meetings where I feel like we spent hours trying to make a decision and not really feeling like we were getting anywhere. Um, or the thing where some people think, yeah, we decided, and other people are like, I don't think we decided that yet. So that's tricky. Some people feel like they're just not being heard, or they are being heard, but they're being ignored. Um, or, like the time runs out, and then whoever happened to speak last, that's just kind of the decision we go with because that was being discussed at the time when our time ran out. We had to go to our next meeting. Or it just gets put off forever and ever and ever and ever. And we're like, we've been really needing to decide about that for so long. So without that decision making clarity, things can get pretty tricky. And so there's a lot of different ways to make decisions, and they can all be used in different ways. So here's some ways that decisions can get made. Um, Coin toss can be a way to make a decision. This can be when the stakes are pretty low, or when it doesn't matter that much. You know what I mean? Like, should we discuss this first or this first? Like, it doesn't really matter, they're both important. Or we'll just do whatever. Or do we go to McDonald's or Burger King? You know what I mean? Like, you can just use a coin toss. That's one way. A leader can decide with no input. This is a good one when something is like either really only impacting you, right? Like, you can decide whether you're going to have, a chicken sandwich or a shrimp sandwich, right? Doesn't impact too many other people. That can be a decision that is just made by yourself with no input. Another time that might be useful is when there's just something truly urgent. Get out of the building. We're not asking for everybody's input about how we're going to evacuate the campers when there's a fire. We're just evacuating the campers. There's not discussion about like how. Let's just do it, right? Um, Another way is you can decide with input. This is when input is valuable. You might want to make a decision about something. So you can get that input and then make the decision. You could do a majority vote. This is where you really want to get input from everybody, and buy-in is going to really matter. So majority vote can be a great way to make a decision. You can also aim for consensus or agreement. That's where we don't move forward until everybody's on the same page. Then this can be worth the effort that it takes to get there if this is a major new program or a really important thing that needs to get done, because you need significant buy-in order for something to be successful. Or you can also have delegation. And delegation is just when somebody who might have decision-making power delegates that decision-making power to someone else. And then that person uses one of these ways to make the decision. So, I might say, hey, we're running this event. You can make the decision about which childcare provider to hire, as long as it's within the budget we already decided. And then that person can then, have a group of people do a majority vote, or they can just make a decision after asking for some input. They can use one of these other strategies to make that decision, but I'm delegating that decision to someone else. Let me make a key point about consensus. If you are aiming for consensus, you can have a backup plan if you're not able to reach consensus. So what that might look like is, hey, we have 40 minutes to discuss this, and I would love for us to get to consensus about whether we're going to implement Asana or Monday as our project management tool. But if we aren't able to get to consensus, then I will take all of the input that I heard today and I will make a decision. Or, Joe will take all the input and Joe's going to actually make the final call if we don't get to consensus before that. And then maybe you get to consensus in 10 minutes and you move right along. But maybe that's kind of your backstop so that you don't just get stuck forever trying to get to consensus when it's possible that sometimes consensus is not able to be reached in something that needs to move forward. This is a tool you can use for consensus. So it's from Sam Kainer. It's called the Gradients of Agreement. And this tool you can either use an 8-point scale or a 5-point scale. But essentially, this is how this works. Sometimes a 5-point scale is used quickly if you want people to just do a very simple version of this or a show of hands. But essentially, you might put a proposal on the table. So let's say my proposal is that we host the event at the rooftop garden, right? And so a proposal is on the table. You then check for where people are at with that proposal. So people might put up a 1 if they're in total agreement. I love that idea. That's where I want to host it too. Right? A 2 is I'm on board, but I want to specify that the event is at sunset. And if we could say that it's going to be at the rooftop garden at sunset, I would be totally on board, right? A 3 is like, I can live with this. I prefer the lakeside place, but I can go with the garden if that is what works, right? 4 is like, I don't care, basically, or it doesn't impact me. I'm staying out of it. Like, I don't need to be involved in this decision. A 5 is like, I don't really get what we're talking. I have clarifying questions. Like, I don't understand. Like, how much does this cost? Like, what does the vibe look like? How many people can fit? Like, I need more information before I can have an opinion. I don't like this, but I'll support it. Like, is where you'd go if you put up 6. So, I can get on board with this, but I would prefer something different. A 7 is like, I'm not supporting this. And 8 is like, if 8 is an option, you're essentially giving somebody the opportunity to veto something. And if you allow 8s to be part of this, then somebody can essentially say, we can't do this and we have to start over. A 1 through 5 would be similar. You would just use a different type of scale. 1 is like totally support. 5 is like really do not support this. And then after the proposal on the table and you get a sense, you might find in many cases that people are generally already on board. You might find a bunch of 1s. In fact, it could be all 1s, and then you can just move on without having to continue to discuss. Or maybe there's a couple of 2s and people want to clarify. And you can ask people like, hey, what would get you to a 1? Like, is there something we could change about the proposal that would get you over here? And you just get a sense of what where folks are at. And then over time, you might modify the proposal. Like, it's like, oh, okay, so, if we modified it slightly by having the event in October instead of November, you could be a 1. Okay, well then let's put that proposal on the table and see where everybody's at with that. And you can kind of move towards getting consensus with this tool. It's a way to kind of check where people are at with something before you move on, so that you can make sure you're having a conversation about the right pieces where there might actually be disagreements, or you're not spending time making a decision that doesn't even need to be made because everybody's already on board. Okay, so that is a tool that you can use if you want to aim for consensus as well. I hope that's helpful.